Hi, my name is Miles, and today I'm going to be reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 3, The Letters from No One. Harry, the escape of Brazilian boa constrictor on Harry, his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started, and Dudley had already broken his new video camera, crashed his remote control airplane, and the first time out on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs. Fig as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. He was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's game. It was the house every single day. Piers, Dennis, Malcolm, and Gordon were all big and stupid, but as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was the leader. The rest of them were quite happy to join Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. This is why Harry spent as much time possible out of the house wandering and thinking about the end of the holidays, when he could see a tiny ray of hope. When September came, he would be going off to secondary school. For the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. Dudley had been accepted at Uncle Vernon's old private school, Smeltings. Piers Porkins was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, a local public school. Dudley thought it was very funny. They stuffed people's head down the toilet for the first day of Stonewall, he told her. Wanna come up and stairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilets never had anything as horrible as your head down it. Might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he had said. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London to buy his smelting uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Fig's. Mrs. Fig wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she had broken her leg tripping over one of her cats. She didn't seem quite as fond as She didn't seem quite as fond of them as before. She let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she had had it for several years. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smelting's boys wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats called boaters. They also carried knobby sticks for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later life. As he looked at Dudley with his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the proudest moments of his life. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe it was her ickle Dudleykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. They didn't trust himself to speak. He thought two of his ribs might already crack, trying not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning. Harry went in for seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in gray water. What's this? He asked Aunt Petunia, her lips tightened as they did if he dared to ask a question. Your new school uniform, she said. Harry looked in the bowl again. Oh, he said, I didn't realize it had to be so wet. Don't be stupid, snapped Aunt Petunia. I'm dying at some of old Dudley's old things gray for you. It will look just like everyone else's when I've finished. Harry sincerely doubted this, but thought it was best not to argue. He sat down at the table table and tried not to think about how he was going to look on his first day of Stonewall High, like he was wearing bits of old elephant skin probably. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in, both wrinkled noses because of the smell of Harry's new uniform. Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual. Dudley banged his mountain stick, which he carried everywhere, on the table. They heard the click of the mail slot and flopped the letters on the doormat. "Get the mail, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it. Get the mail, Harry." "Make Dudley get it. Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." "Let me..." Harry dodged the smelting stick and went to get the mail. 3 things lay on the door. Postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Maud was vacationing on Isles of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at his heart like a giant elastic band. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no relatives. He didn't belong to the library. He had never got rude notes asking for books back. Yet here was a letter addressed so plainly that there could be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, 4 Portrait Drive, Little Wingy. So, the envelope was thick and heavy, made yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning that one over, his hand trembled. Harry saw a purple wax hand bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake, surrounding a large letter H. "Hurry up, boys!" shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back to the kitchen, still staring at his letter. He handed Uncle Vernon the bill, the postcard, sat down, and slowly began to open the yellow envelope. Uncle Vernon ripped open the door, snowed in dust, and flipped over the postcard. "Marge is ill," he informed Aunt Petunia. "Ate a funny whelk." "Dad!" said Dudley suddenly. "Dad! Harry's got something!" Harry was on the point of unfolding it, which was written on the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it was struck sharply out of hand by Uncle Vernon. "That's mine," said Harry, trying to snatch it back. "He would be writing to you," sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing at it. His face went up from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights. And it didn't stop there. Within seconds, it was grayish-white of old Porsche. "Petunia!" he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter to read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of reach. And Aunt Petunia took it curiously and read it, the first line. For a moment, it looked as though she might faint. She clutched her throat and made a choking noise. "Vernon! Oh my goodness! Vernon!" They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten Harry and Dudley were still in there. Dudley wasn't being used to ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with his smelting stick. "I want to read that letter," he said loudly. "I want to read it," said Harry Phillips. "It's mine." "Get out, both of you," croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back inside its envelope. Harry didn't move. "I want my letter!" he shouted. "Let me see it," demanded Dudley. "Out!" roared Uncle Vernon, and he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their necks and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley would. So Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach to listen through the crack between the door and floor. "Vernon," as Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, "look at the address. Could they possibly know where he sleeps? You don't think they're watching the house? Watching? Spying? They might be following us, muttered Uncle Vernon wearily. But what should we do, Vernon? Should we write back? Tell them we don't want? Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes pacing up and down the kitchen. No, he said finally. No, we'll ignore it, and if they don't get an answer, yes, the best. We won't do anything. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear we took it in, we stamped out the dangerous nonsense? That evening that he got back from work, Uncle Vernon did something he never did before. He visited Harry's cupboard. Where's my letter? Said Harry the moment Uncle Vernon squeezed through the door. Who's writing to? No one. It was addressed to you by a small, said Uncle Vernon. I burned it. It was not a mistake. It had my cupboard on it. Silence! Yelled Uncle Vernon, and a couple of spiders fell from the ceiling. He took a few deep breaths and forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard. Your Aunt and I have been thinking you're really getting too big for it. We think it might be nice if you move into Dudley's second bedroom. Why? Said Harry. Don't ask questions. Questions, snapped his uncle. Take the stuff upstairs now. The Dursleys' house had 4 bedrooms, one for Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, and one where Dudley slept, one where Dudley kept all his toys and things that weren't fit into his first bedroom. It only took Harry one trip upstairs to move everything he owned from the cupboard to his room. He sat down on the bed and stared around. Nearly everything here was broken. Nearly everything was broken. The month-old video camera was lying on top of a small working tank Dudley had once driven over the next door's neighbor's dog. The corner was Dudley's first ever television set, which he put his foot through when his favorite program had been canceled. There was a large bird cage that he had once held a parrot that Dudley had swapped for a real air rifle, which was up on a shelf with end of bed because Dudley had sat on it. Other shelves were full of books. There were only things in that looked they had never been touched. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. I don't want him there. I need that room. Make him get out. Harry sighed and stretched onto it. Yesterday he would give him anything to be up here. Today he'd rather be in his cupboard with a letter than up here without it. Next morning breakfast, everyone was crying. Dudley was in shock. He'd screamed, whacked his father with his mountain stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. He was thinking about his time yesterday and bitterly wishing he had opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia kept looking at each other darkly. When the mail arrived, Uncle Vernon, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go get it. They heard banging things with smelting sticks all the way home. Then he shouted, There's another one! Mr. H. Paul, the smallest bedroom for Privet Drive. With a strangled cry, Uncle Vernon leapt from his seat and ran down the hall, Harry right behind him. Uncle Vernon had to wrestle the Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him, which was made difficult by the fact Harry had grabbed Uncle Vernon around the neck from behind. After a movement of confused fighting, which hit a lot by this mountain stick, Uncle Vernon straightened up, gasping for breath, with Harry's letter clutched in his hand. "Go to your cupboard, I mean your bedroom," he wheezed to Harry. "Dudley, go, just go." Harry walked around in his new bedroom. Somebody knew he had moved out of his cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant they'd try again, and this time they'll make sure they didn't fall. He had a plan. He repaired the alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive as he crept across the dark hall toward the front door. "Og!" He had leapt into the air. He had trodden something big and squashy on the doorman, something alive. Lights clicked on upside down. To his horror, Harry realized that the big squashy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been lying on the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure Harry didn't do exactly what he had been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour, then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Harry shuffled nervously off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the mail had arrived right into Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see green letters addressed in green ink. "I want," he began, but Uncle Vernon was tearing the letters into pieces before his eyes. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. He stayed at home and nailed up the mail slip. "See," he explained to Aunt Petunia, "your mouthful of nails. If they can't deliver them, you'll just give up. I'm not sure that'll work, Uncle Vernon, or these people's minds work in a strange ways. Aunt Petunia, they are not like you and me." Trying to knock a nail with a piece of fruit cake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. On Friday, no less than 12 letters arrived for Harry. If they couldn't go through the mail shop, they had been pushed under the door, sorted through the slides, and even forced through the small window in the downstairs bedroom. Harry's Uncle Vernon stayed at home again. After burning all the letters, he got a hammer and nails and boarded up the cracks around the front back doors so no one could get out. He tiptoed through the tulips as he worked, and jumping at small noises. On Saturday, things began to get on him. 24 letters to Harry found their way in the house. Rolled up and hidden inside each of 24 eggs, the very confused milkman had handed Aunt Petunia through the living room window, while Uncle Vernon made furious telephone calls to the post office and the dairy to find someone to complain to. Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her food processor. "Who on the earth could talk to you this badly?" Dudley asked Harry. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat at the breakfast table, rather ill but happily. "No post on Sundays," he reminded them cheerfully as he spread marmalade on his newspapers. "No damn letters today." Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke and caught him sharply on the back of his head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pecking out of the fireplace like bullets in the Dursleys' den, and Harry leapt into the air trying to catch one. "Out, out, out!" Uncle Vernon seized Harry and whisked him through into the hall. Then Aunt Petunia and Dudley had ran out with their arms over their faces. Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear the letters still steaming streaming into the room, bouncing off walls and the floor. "That does it," said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly, but pulling great tufts of his mustache at the same time. We're going away. Just pack some clothes, no arguments." He looked dangerous, with half of his mustache missing, that no one dared to argue. 10 minutes later, they had wrenched their way back through the boarded up stairs and were to them, speeding through the hut. Dudley was sniffling in the back seat. His father had hit him around the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television, VCR, and computer in his sports bag. They drove and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare ask where they were going. Every now and then, Uncle Vernon would take a sharp turn, drive in the opposite direction for a while. Shake them off, he would mutter whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He had never had such day. He was hungry. He missed 5 television programs he wanted to see, and he never gone without blowing up an alien on his computer. Uncle Vernon stopped at last outside a gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of a big city. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, musty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights, the passing cars, and wondering. They ate stale cornflakes and old tin tomatoes on toast for the next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to day. Excuse me, but is any of them, but is one of you Mr. H. Potter? Only I got about 100 of these at the front desk. She held up a letter so they could read the green ink address. Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. "I'll take them," said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following from the desk. "Wouldn't it be better to go home, dear?" Aunt Petunia suggested timidly hours later, but Uncle Vernon seemed to not hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove into the middle of the forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back into the car, and off they went again. The same thing happened in the middle of the plowed field, halfway across the Ascension Bridge, and top of the Mulberry Park. "Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" Dudley asked Aunt Petunia, dully, late afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast, locked them inside the car, and disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops of beat on the roof of the car. Dudley sniffled. "It's Monday," he told his mother. "The great Harbills are tonight. I want to stay somewhere with television." Monday? This reminded Harry something. If it was Monday, you could usually count on Dudley to know the days of the week because of television. And tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthday was never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys has given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Still, you want 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back and he was smiling, and he was also carrying a long, thin package, and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he bought. "Found the perfect place," he said. "Come on, everyone out." It was very cold outside the door of the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a very large rock where, perched on top of the rock, was the most miserable little shack you could imagine. One thing was certain, there was no television in there. storm forecast for tonight, clapping his hands together, and this gentleman's kindly agreed to lend us his boat. Toothless Man came ambling up to them, pointing with rather wicked hand at an old rowboat bobbing in the iron gray water below. I've already got him some rations, so all aboard. It was freezing in the boat. Icy sprang, and the rain crept down their necks, and chilly wind whipped their faces. And after what seemed like hours, reached the rock, where Uncle Vernon, slipping the sliding, led the way to the broken-down house. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls. The fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon's rations turned up to be a bag of chips each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire, but the empty chip bags just smoked and shriveled up. Could do with some of those letters now, he said cheerfully. He could, in very good mood. Honestly, he thought nobody could stand a chance of reaching them here in the storm to deliver mail. Harry privately agreed, though he didn't cheer him up at all. As night fell, he promised storm blew all around them, spraying from high waves, splattered the walls and hut, and fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room and made bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went off to the lumpy bed next door. Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could to curl up under the thinnest, most ragged blanket. The storm raged more than fiercely. Night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned by low rolls of thunder. They stared near midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa with his fast wrist, told Harry it had been 11 and 10 minutes. He lay watched his birthday tick nearer, wondering if Dudley would remember it at all. The Dursleys would remember it at all. Wondering where the letter writer was now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although he might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive would be so full of letters when they got back he would be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. What was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching on the rock? 1 minute to go. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'll wake up Dudley up now just to annoy him. 3, 2, 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered and Harry sat up upright, staring at the door. Someone outside was knocking to come in. If you want to listen to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys, you'll have to wait for the next video.